When I first imagined this Master course, I imagined taking a bunch of students from all over the country, but who might go to USC, and students from all over Minnesota, but who, native students from Minnesota, and bringing all of these people together to conduct a study of American Indian lives in an American Indian community. I thought that might go a long way toward investigating this disconnect and then finding some sort of solution. So the whole course was, when I first thought of the course, I imagined the course as a way to connect people and to push against these fantasies which seem to have control of our understanding. In the mornings we'll do book learning. We're going to identify problems of representation, problems with our understandings drawn from our readings. And then we'll take those problems, and in the afternoons we'll head out and interview people and talk to people and get out into the world and try to find solutions. One of the decisions we made as a group early on was to try and stay light and unobtrusive and mobile, even if that meant that we didn't have the kind of video quality we might hope for, or the audio quality. We thought we could capture more of the texture of real life if we were more invisible. So we decided to use iPods. They're small, they're light, they're portable, and they have limitations too, of course. But as with any project, successful projects learn how to function within a set of limitations. I didn't want to start the course with a really clear or firm idea of what I wanted to make or what I wanted the students to make. I wanted the course to be a coming together of everyone's concerns. I wanted the students to script and to plot the documentary that we ended up collaborating on, and that's happened. And I'm incredibly pleased and incredibly encouraged by what the students have made together.
Welcome to our movie! That was awesome.
We were able to talk to a lot of people who are very important to in our lives, and that we thought would be interesting to share with all of you out there.
Well, we were interviewing. We like with Anna Gibbs. We just let her take over. We didn't hardly direct her at all. She sat us down. She told us where we were going to interview her, and then she just took over. And that's what we were hoping for. We were hoping for real people and real stories and what they wanted to share with us, what they thought was important, and so we value all of the people that we interviewed, and we just sort of let them take it on, didn't we?
Yeah, Anna is a very important person in preserving the language, the tradition. She's from Panema and Red Lake, and it was a real privilege to talk to her. We also spoke with Vincent Graves, who's an impressive young man, a student here at Bemidji State, and plays an important leadership role in the Council of American Indians here. He's a dancer. He's awesome.
And he was one of my students, and I really enjoyed having him in my class, and I thought that he would be extremely valuable to have as a student. I mean, as a student in David's class, but he had to go to Norway instead. So we took what we could get, and we interviewed him just to have him share who he was. And then we have Eddie as a mutual friend for the last 5 years, and
more like 10 years. Eddie's been in our life. He's an important part of our life. Eddie Cloud. but who's also from Panema, grew up there. He's a first speaker. He's a fisherman, a logger. He knows the woods. He gathers plants for food and medicine. He makes crafts like dream catchers, and Eddie's kind of an amazing person. He's a real character. We love him.
So, with all the interviews, we were just extremely impressed with the characters in our life, and very proud to share them. And the readings that we did definitely changed my view. I was born, like I said, on the White Earth Reservation, and didn't really do a lot of schooling until coming to college. So my mind was open to the readings in ways that I would have never imagined. So I'm really thankful for this course, and for David's brilliant knowledge, the way he sees things. I'm very impressed with that.
I should say that we have 6 kids, 5 grandkids. Our kids and grandkids are Native. Native issues are an important part of our life. It's been fascinating to see David's view. He bursts a lot of bubbles. He really is brilliant. I think I learned more in maybe a half hour about writing nonfiction after going through Ian Fraser's On the Res, and then seeing what worked in that book, how Fraser is a very adept writer, but also how his concept of American Indian lives was somewhat a kilter, and we've been trying through our interviews, through our studies, to come up with images that may be a little bit counter to the mainstream image of victimization and loss.
Of course, I really didn't know anything about Native lives. I'd never even heard of the Ojibwe people. Whenever you think of Indians, you think, oh, the brave warrior on his horse riding in some Western movie. You don't really think about who they are as people today. So when this course started and I started meeting people, I was pleasantly surprised. They're just people living their lives, trying to keep their culture alive. And when we asked them, what does tradition mean to you? I didn't think, oh, this is their culture, this is so native, what they're saying. What I was thinking was, wow, you know, that's really what I want for my family.
Nothing can stand in the way of someone who really knows who they are. In a Anishinaabe person, in this land where we're supposed to be, where all of that strength, the language, everything permeates from the very ground we walk on. That's what we want our kids to walk around with.
My name is Nabekwa. I am from Leech Lake, Minnesota, and I'm an Ojibwe Anishinaabe.
My other name, my spirit name is Giwita Gishgokwe. I am from Red Lake, the center of the known universe.
My name is Winona Ann Little Wolf. I am from the Boys Fort Reservation, but I've grown up in Bemidji my whole life.
Tradition is the behaviors, it's the actions that hold culture in place.
Tradition to me, I guess, you know, it's such a word that it's so broad, and it means different things to different people.
The idea of tradition, in my own thoughts, has more to do with us, those of us that are learning what it is to be a Anishinaabe.
Maybe they weren't labeled as tradition. They weren't labeled as culture. They were just what people did.
When I work with my elders and stuff, when they look at me like, what do you mean? Because it's not tradition to them, it's their lifestyle. That's what they grew up with. I wish that I could say that's how I grew up, but I didn't.
Yes, for me, it means something that I would like my children to carry on.
And I remember when I first found out that Mitakameshi, my son, was coming, I really vowed to myself that I do not want this boy to grow up with the confusion that I grew up with. I want him to know who he is. From the time he was in his mom's stomach, I spoke to him and I did not speak any English. And then one day I had some tobacco sitting on my table. He was like trying to grab that pack of tobacco, so I pushed it over. I just wanted to see what he was doing. He grabbed that tobacco and he went outside with it. He put the tobacco at the tree, because we used to do that every day. He would come out with me, I'd put my tobacco out, I'd talk and say my miigwechas for everything. And then he gave the tree a big hug, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm all just choked up. I'm like, he gets it, he really does. It's a delicate balance between pushing him and letting him make that choice. I let him know, you're going to be expected to take my place when it's time. Are you going to be ready? People are going to come and ask you things. Are you going to have answers? Are you listening?
We gave them a lot of respect so that they could have a ceremonial life. You have to attend to your children in this way and give them that kind of attention and make sure that their rites of passage are acknowledged.
I know Maya growing up would be at school and just start talking about powers, and kids had no idea because she goes to a school and it's mostly white or non-native. And I was like, do you want to bring in your outfit? Okay. And so she'd bring her stuff in and she would talk about it. She would talk about what powers are, why she dances, and very educational. And this is who my children are and this is a part of them, and I really would like to share this with all of you to see who they are, because they're not just a Maya in your class. There's a part of her that you have no idea about, and it's a big part of her, and I don't want them to all of a sudden realize one day, wow, she's Native, she's so different. My parents, they always said, whatever you do, go out and do your best and work hard. Work harder than everybody else to show them that you can do this.
What I would tell people is that you have been gifted some of the strongest, most beautiful blood, and you have gifts in there, and you need to believe in yourself.
It's tremendously empowering. Self-knowledge in a cultural way, in a spiritual way. So everything that I do, everything that I am about is from that identity.
We are so much more than our grandpas and grandmas were. And I don't mean better. We are expanded. We still retain what they gifted, what they fought so hard to keep. And I mean fought. Each other and outside things, they fought to hold on. We still got it. And those elders that are, if you're watching this, we are listening. We're listening. And we are working hard. And yes, the things that we've been gifted, they're going to be for our kids in the future. That's why I'm doing this. And I'm not alone. There's a lot of people doing this stuff. We're going to be fine. We're going to be fine.
And so I guess growing up, we were just told to do the right thing. And I didn't really put the pieces together about the separation of Native and non-Native. It wasn't ever like an existence to me. It was just who I was and how my family was, and that's what I want my kids to grow up in. I don't want them to think of themselves as being different or anyone else as being different. I want them to know that this is our value system and this is how we do things. you have to also respect that other people do things differently. And I want them to grow up knowing why we do these things, and I want them to be able to pass on that value system and that love onto their kids as well.
We are down at the Panema Point area where in the Obashing, Dictionary, come on, yeah. That's what we call the Narrows. And this is the inlet between the two lakes. Comes from the north to the south. The water always comes from the north, comes this way. Kikshana map. I'm saying look at these deer tracks. We still got those here today. The Wawa Skaishi is still here. He runs here. That's our brother that so valiantly gives his life up for us when we're hungry. When we are hungry, we give him tobacco and say thank you for all that he does for us. When we go on ceremony, use him for ceremony. My Indian name is Chaugi Chidao Andini. That means the warrior man. Okay, Shana. Magizi Wagama Bijay. That's a black tip. Yeah, that's an eagle. Yeah. A lot of these words that I'm saying today that I don't hardly ever hear anybody saying. Ever. Especially when we used to go and set nets. We'd say, my dad would say, you ready to go in Bagadawa? Shkina Wewe. That means, could you go set those nets, hurry up? He'd always say that in India. He'd make us go, he'd have us hustling. But that was our way of living, fishing and surviving off Mother Earth. We used to use the land, the trees, everything. We'd go to different areas and we'd go use them. You know, like the river, the wild rice, we'd be there once a year. Even the blueberries out over here across the lake, right here. There's a blueberry patch really thick there. And then we got strawberries and everything all around here. Raspberries, everything. Yeah, this is really something right here. I love this area. I lived out in Oklahoma once and it ain't nothing like this, believe me. The water was so sludgy it looked like mud. And you couldn't even, my honey stuck her toe in like, I ain't going swimming here, she said. Boy, we got back to Red Lake, she went running right in there. No questions asked. It was springtime when we moved back home. Man, the water was cold. She dared to go running right in there. Remember that time you guys went swimming around the corner? That's just right around the corner here. That was pretty fun. Yeah.
Both my grandparents are actually organic farmers, so when I got here to Bemidji, I was really interested to see what kind of local foods were grown and sold here. And so when we found Harmony Co-op, which is this really cool grocery store, community co-op, and they get a lot of their foods from local sources, including the 3 Indian reservations that surround Bemidji. And even in the back, in the kitchen, they have a community kitchen where people can bring foods they've harvested, grown, or even hunted, and can them and cook them and learn healthy ways to live and to cook and to eat food. And that was something we were interested in.
This is Harmony Natural Foods Co-op in Bemidji, Minnesota.
This community is really a mix. It's sort of rural and sort of a town. I mean, I think it's kind of growing from a little town to a little city, or a big town to a little city. I think is what's happening to Bemidji. Obviously, there's this kind of wish that we would have a healthy world in general, but it starts at home because that's where you're really invested. I think we have family here, you know, both ancestors as well as children. And, you know, I envision my child growing up in this community in a really good way. And so kind of building that sense of community is why I think it's important to do it here. So it's really rooted close to home. And again, it's that sense of community that we've built. It's like relationships and friendships are really what hold it all together.
So that's really helpful because they tell us what they want, and you know, and we just have a really reciprocal relationship.
I love raspberries. I love blueberries. I love fish. Walleye. I mean, Red Lake walleye. Yeah. Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like Red Lake, the lake there, which is the largest lake, freshwater lake in Minnesota and practically anywhere, I think, is known for this incredible walleye. And so for me, it's not only about like the way it tastes and stuff, but it has to do with my heritage as a Red Laker.
I remember that day in 2006 when we reopened. We went out to the rivers, went out to Red Lake River, and there was people, Red Lake tribal members, on the banks of all the rivers. They were so happy to be able to snag up and hook walleye and take them home and eat them that night. And there was smiling and happy faces all over.
And I remember growing up and watching my uncles go set nets at 4 in the morning, you know, come back out and then literally like take them out of the net, fillet them, pass them, not even go around the door to the window, but just around the door, but just through the window to my aunt, and she would fry them, and we would just be like standing around waiting to eat them, and it was just this incredible thing, you know.
So we watched that just in this small little community, and we really watched the emphasis and the support and the encouragement from our community. Well, as Simone said, we do live in a really agriculturally rich region, and we deal both with farmers and gatherers.
I am from Panema, up the road there. That's where I'm from. They call them figure shield beans, I think, for the design of the bean. I've never tasted a better bean. You know, you can't just go buy these seeds. They have to be created and saved. And then I'll come behind and I'll plant just these beans at each one that I think realistically every family needs something like this, only about 4 times the size. We need to restore the balance.
The napin is a wild ginger that is not only medicinal, but it's edible for seasoning on foods and stuff. You see the shape of the leaf is like a heart, and it's actually what we call a heart medicine and stuff. It's good for your heart, good for your system. So that the roots of it are pulled up, dried, sprinkled on your food. That's a big part of being traditional, is trying to do the best for your community that you can.
People are open to it, and it's new, and we're starting to build the infrastructure to support some of this work that we're doing around local foods. And so there's all these pieces that are starting to really come together right now at this time and place. So there's like sort of this cultural will combined with the place that we're at and the population who has chosen to make this place their home. It's kind of all of those things together are making it a fertile place to really kind of grow.
And a lot of people think of food co-ops as inaccessible.
The people I've met here, they've just been so confident and knowledgeable, and they know exactly when the blueberry patches are gonna bloom and which ones are fake morels versus morels. And that's a knowledge that growing up in Los Angeles, I couldn't really pick up, because I mean, we have palm trees and grass and everything is very artificial. So coming here where things are, I guess, real food, it seems.
Even, 50, 60 years ago, before this huge sort of turn and with, huge agribusinesses, that there were really intact, vibrant local food communities, and that we were much healthier at that time, and it was just easier because that was just the norm, and it was how it was done, and it was what was available, and it was what was affordable. And you know, people had gardens, people hunted, people fished, people gathered as just their way of life. Being more intentional about your food, like taking time to grow your garden, or taking time off work when it's hunting season. How do we make space for that for ourselves so that we can live more healthy? Because I think we have to create those systems that are conducive to healthier lifestyles in general.
Of all of the places that I've been in my life, this is the place that I feel most connected to. So usually when people ask me where I'm from, I tell them here. Skills that I learned to help the Ojibwe people, the Anishinaabe, come home and, you know, be of some value to our communities.
And we had traditional practitioners who live off the land, whether they're fisher people, whether they're hunters or gatherers, people that know about the changing going on in their environment. The lifestyle that we live now in this world, this many cars going by, it's not sustainable. So we really have to ask ourselves, you know, what are we doing, you know, to make a change, and how are we embracing the original instructions? How do we help humanity to reevaluate its relationship? What goes as far as prayers and thoughts into this river? This is part of that transformation, to redefine our relationship as human beings to Mother Earth, to the sacredness of Mother Earth. And that's the next step where IEN is evolving.
My cooking kind of just revolves around what I'm doing. So morel picking, if I get to go out fishing and I'm lucky enough to catch some fish, then you know that's what's for dinner. And so it kind of revolves around whatever my free time lets me do as far as hunting and gathering. A few weeks ago, the morels were popping out, and so both my brother and I were picking mushrooms and cooking them up as we found them. So I picked a bunch of morels, came home and made some eggs and sauteed morels, and then for dinner, some pasta with morels and cream sauce. And once in a while, we'll go pick some fiddleheads, like when the ferns first pop out and they're still kind of tightly coiled up, kind of like asparagus almost. Well, there's always something, like springtime, it's maple syrup and morels and fiddleheads, and fishing is usually good. In the summer, toward the end of the summer, it's berry season, so there are raspberries and strawberries, cranberries, pin cherries toward the end of the summer. And then in the fall, it's grouse hunting, duck hunting. Later fall, it's deer hunting. In the wintertime, you can usually snare some rabbits. So I guess all year long, except for kind of the dead late winter here, there's always something to kind of hunt and gather and cook. I'll let that go for a little bit here.
I mean, I love this story. It's a true story. Came to Harmony with an article called "The Poor Get Diabetes, the Rich Get Organic and Go Local," and it was like, whoa, there's a throwing down the gauntlet. But that really did start a conversation amongst ourselves here at the co-op, and then with IEN.
As you may know, like diabetes is just a terrible disease afflicting a huge portion of Native people. 60% or upwards of that on Leafs Lake Reservation, 60% of people have diabetes in some level of severity. And it's probably mostly diet related is how we eat nowadays. And that disease just was not present, when we were eating and living in more traditional ways. So I think kind of returning back to some of our traditional foods like wild rice and wild game, which is very lean, is a healthy way to live. And then also, hunting and gathering, harvesting wild rice or picking berries. It's an active lifestyle. I mean, like if you're out there doing those things, it's a healthy way to spend your day, and then a healthy diet is kind of the bonus.
And it gives us my name. I'm from Panema. That's where I was born and raised in Panema. I wasn't born in a hospital. I was born right in a house. There's 2 midwives that I had, and those are one of them gave me their name as Wasabik. That's how I grew up. It was traditional way. The sema paningi puabma wedege. My mother used to do ceremonies, and that's how I was taught when she does the ceremonies. Here's no gum Kishigayan, make Panigigi Pabisidawaga to currency, Igagami Dewi Vat, Kakanagi Gung in the Quabidun. Kiss no gun in Ishigayan, Shaga, me Shigaya, and done in Bemidji, no okay. Igaga, Kakabishush Kunida, Amadewa cake, okay, Bishush Kunan. Over Scotch Magana, but a bit of Kimasi. Me walking, Gitawagan geek. Is that the last person that sat here? The last person I sat down with that old man that did those midday funerals. When he knew I completed everything. The things that I sat down, listened to. I listened to what he said. I caught everything. And then when he knew I caught everything through the midday lodge, he pushed that drum towards me. He said, "This drum is yours now," he said. And I'm still saddened when he left. And that was my traditional teacher. And the go giga kanangi minani bimatsi no wagi publicitawak. Since I gave him half my life to listen to him and to help him. Nishno guma is chigayan and kanamage. You anis chigayan gishmishna we bisitangawea. We know who can be doing now. Good thing we know. You give a bisitamoa. Well, what I'm trying to do here, I'm trying to pass on to what I learned. I'm trying to teach. If they would listen, because one of these days that they're going to carry on to what I'm doing. Mira.
When I first came to Minnesota, I didn't know what the Ojibwe
Ojibwe language was. I'd never heard anybody speak it before.
The Anishinaabe-Moan or Ojibwe language is important to me because I think it withholds a lot of deeper meanings and teachings that I think we can all learn from.
I don't really like how everybody is like saying that English should be the language of the land, because really it's the Ojibwe and Dakota and all the other languages that were here that should be the first languages. Michelle Goose, Indigenous, Mako and Dude, Zazaga Squad Jamaica and Dunjba, Mioma Battle Point Asian Nikade.
The Ojibwe language is quite eloquent and a beautiful language. To put into a little more perspective, my brother is a fluent speaker, and some of the most eloquent and beautiful speeches I've ever heard from a speaker was given by my brother. His name is Bobby Whitebrother, when he was chairman of the Red Lake Band. But the irony about it is that there were not very many people who could understand, that were left, that could understand what he was saying. Just a little tiny minority still are able to understand.
Sula go gashkitu winda magyar minik yenin kendaman when the kanes yan itug. Mita shidug merisho ma kiayawag Anishinaabe ma ubashing ma eshinikadi magak. Ashna ma gitagushno giduga we mitiguji eshinikanin. Mita shiduga Anishinaabe gwa you mesh could do Namawa and Awesi and Gita Sunawad.
I don't think the Creator and the Spirit helpers have any problem understanding anybody, no matter what language they're speaking. But I want to adhere to the traditions. This is the language that was given to us. So. That's what was given to us by the spirits. Gichimakwa, Indigenous cause, and Wabijeshi Dodem in the Bain Dagos, Kazagaskwa, Jamaica, Gishkoniganing, Winge Bayan.
My own opinion is that it is probably pretty difficult to pass on the culture without the language. The language is your basis of the culture, as well as any culture. I think that it is important. That's the gut of your culture, is the language. And
I think right now is like a really crucial time for the language revitalization movement, because our speakers, they're all getting older, and I think most of them are above 50. So probably within our lifetime, like the last of the first language speakers will be gone, and I think it's really up to like people my age to pick up as much of the language as we can and try to pass that on to the children.
I'm old enough to remember when my elders, some of them couldn't speak English very well, and they were embarrassed about that because their language was Ojibwe. And now you see the pendulum has swung by, and so a lot of us also now are kind of embarrassed we don't speak Ojibwe well enough, so there's that, see that pendulum swing. And back in the old days, it was just assumed everybody spoke Ojibwe, and then some of the cool guys and gals were the ones that had been off somewhere in the cities or school or someplace, and they could speak English too. And that was considered, ooh, they're really cool, you know, they know English, you know. Well, now it's just the opposite. And you got guys who are raised and educated and got doctorate degrees or lawyers or whatever, and they can also speak Ojibwe. Those are the cool guys and gals nowadays. So you see that pendulum is swung, and I always thought once you get guys and gals that are doing that, that's when that's going to influence all those young kids. I want to be cool too, you know. It's just a natural thing.
The teachers back then were white. They were non-Indian, and of course, you know, they didn't know how to speak Anishinaabe, so they kind of discouraged the use of the Anishinaabe language or the Ojibwe language. So, and we got more than scolded a few times for using the Ojibwe language in school. You weren't supposed to do that. Pull our ears. We'd spanked a lot of times.
Hopefully it will live on into the future generations, and someday it'll be like how it used to be, and it'll just be spoken everywhere, and nobody will be scared to speak Ojibwe anymore.
As a first speaker of the language, I process my spiritual thoughts in the language, and I even think in my first language. When I look at something, I think about it in the context of expressing it in the Ojibwe language. It's something that's innate almost. It's here in my head, and fortunate I think it's never gone away, and I hope it never does.
My name is Vincent Graves. I'm from Red Lake, Minnesota. The Eagle Clan. I go to school here at Bemidji State University. It's finishing my second year. I did originally come for biology. I was interested in fisheries. After taking some Indian Studies classes, I just kind of feel like that's where I want to go instead. It's the philosophy of life, of living. You know, it's not a chapter in a history book. And when I was young, you know, I think they covered it when I was in 5th grade, and that was that. And you know, everybody kind of looks at it too as I'm getting further along in my classes, and I tell more people, yes, I'm doing Indian Studies, and at the same time I feel like I have to fight because of that, because they're like, oh, well, what are you going to do with that? And it's like, well, what the hell you mean? What am I going to do with that? I'm going to do anything I want with it. And they're like, well, what use is it? And I'm like, how can you say there's no use for it, or even imply that when it's a study of humanities, it's a study of the arts, you know? And with that study, you know, you're opening your mind more. You're not just reading the same thing over and over that gets pounded. That, you know, you get tested on remembering, you know, the most facts on the person next to you. You know, it's a study of, you know, opening your mind more and, you know, delving into the problems and, you know, actually trying to solve them in creative ways. But no matter what part in your life you're at, you know, you should always be helping your family, whether it's helping with the little ones or helping, you know, your aunts or your uncles, helping your grandparents. First and foremost, you know, I feel like it is family. Without the family, you know, you wouldn't have a tradition on any level, whether it's, you know, cultural or whether it's just a family tradition or whether it's a school tradition. If you don't have some kind of family, you know, what's the point of going on with it? You know, looking at it deeper into that, going past the family, you know, the cultural stance, you know, you need that community, which is a larger family, you know. And I'm not necessarily saying that, you know, you have to be from a reservation or you have to be from a certain town. You know, your community can be the people you surround yourself with, you know, the people you want to have contact with on a daily basis, or you just the people you want to go out of your way to say hi to, you know. You don't have to be from some place for that to be your community. I am trying to be a good man.
Education in the Native American community is an issue of particular importance to me. You know, it's complicated and it's challenging, but it's also incredibly important in passing on an authentic identity to the next generation. You know, and in the past, between boarding schools, forced assimilation, and bigotry and bullying in the classroom, you know, it is understandable that some Native Americans are hesitant and distrustful about the system. And ultimately, I think that's valid, because the classroom is supposed to be a place of acceptance and a place that fosters discussion, maybe heated discussion, but at least in a safe environment. You know, so I do appreciate that all of our interview subjects have placed a particular importance on education and the role it plays in continuing traditions and cultural practices and preserving the languages of the indigenous people across America.
It's cool. Honey. Honey.
For me, I don't want our students to grow up with the same questions that I had. I want to provide for them some answers up front so they don't even have to ask, that they grow up knowing, you know, why certain things are important.
My concern is for our own people, that we are empowered by our own knowledge that we haven't always had access to.
I'm talking about that kind of lost generation thing, you know, the boarding school stuff, and now you have this whole generation who views education with a great deal of suspicion.
We already know about the white world. That's what we grew up knowing about. We know how it operates. We know they have it in for us. You know, it's a setup.
You know, they were sent away to Haskell or Flandreau or wherever they sent people. And then even during the summer, they were housed with non-Indian families. It was used almost as a weapon to de-Indianize Native kids. And so it's not important. So then you have this sort of adrift generation. And I found that concept interesting. It actually answered a lot of the questions for me, because, you know, I sit in my classroom over at the trial college, I'm looking at my watch, I'm like, where's everybody?
Some students stuck their head in the door and said, "Did you know so-and-so left school again?" She walked in the office and slammed down her books, said she's never coming back. Some of the jocks had caught her between classes, jammed her into a locker, and were razzing her. "We know you got pregnant by your uncle or your daddy," or whoever the hell it was.
You can get really concerned about the human condition. Because the question is, how the hell can one human being do something like that to another?
I tried to make it a point. That we each have a responsibility to stand up for what is right. Speak up. Act out. Or it will never change.
Because I feel like our people are in a dreamless sleep right now. Where and some of us are just starting to wake up and whoa, where have we been?
You know, for our people to be awake and conscious in our own lives and to take the time to learn as much as we can about ourselves.
This is nation building. This isn't just reading, writing, and arithmetic here. We are talking about recovering a whole way of thinking, a society, a people. This is what we're trying to do.
What we wanted to do as native Ojibwe language instructors is to expose these children to, or reintroduce the Ojibwe language into their education.
It's so much more than even just the language. It's not just about the language. There's a whole attitude. There are things that have to be unlearned, and there are things that have to be reinserted in those places where there's some unhealthy thinking going on, both in our kids and us as a staff.
I teach at the Waban High School different times, or I shouldn't say I teach, but I try to educate about what it means to have a school in a cultural setting where the school's not cultural, it's Western, it's a Minnesota State school. So trying to make sure that they have enough cultural influence on our kids.
All of the programs that we do, we try to get the cultural aspect into it. One thing that is a huge component right now that we're trying to integrate and coming up with some new youth development strategies for our programs. However, in the past, what we've done is like a drum and dance. We'll bring kids in and we'll have an elder, singing around the drum. And
luckily we have these three because honestly, without these three and the elders that we've had here in the past, we'd be dead in the water. We could not do this. We couldn't do it. For one, we couldn't develop the new language that we need. For two, we would never be sure whether or not we're being culturally appropriate. All the reassurances that we need as teachers comes from here. There's no way we could do this without our first speakers, without our elders in here.
And I'm seeing actually this thing called Facebook that people from the Indian communities are kind of gathering an interest in the language and learning how to speak it and learning how to even write it.
We're planting a seed with these kids. And we're also waking each other up, and they're, some of the things that they haven't thought about for a long time, maybe they're starting to think about those again, and we are learning those for the first time. There's such a cycle of learning going on in here. I don't think there's a one of us that isn't learning something in here, or teaching, and that includes the kids.
Make sure that they have other adults in their lives who will help to guide them spiritually and will help take responsibility for them.
We're here for the educational aspect and to keep them just on their toes and having fun and off the streets rather than going out and exploring drugs and different things like that.
I had to learn how to he's still helping with this, but talking about don't put your finger in your crack and run around chasing people with it. I never thought I'd have to learn to say something like that. But that's where we have. That's the kind of stuff that we have to think about. We're not just talking about reading, writing, and arithmetic. We're talking about things that kids do all the time.
I have fun teaching now. I think one of the hardest things for me in life was understanding that not everybody can do stuff the way you do it, or not everybody does it the way you do it. There's no right way or no wrong way. There's only the way that we're taught. So everybody's doing it right. If it seems to be better someplace, or it's not maybe because it's actually better, but maybe because that person, it works better for them.
That's a part of successful living is for all human beings, I think, is to try and find ways to sort of take what works for you, right? That's not a hypocritical way to live. I think that's just life in some ways. And trying to live in a way that feels good and that has meaning at the same time.
I think the best way to learn, in my opinion, or what works best for me, is to actually go out and experience it for yourself instead of reading about it or watching what they show you on TV. I think it's better to see for yourself what something is about so you can come up with your own opinion or view instead of basing it off of somebody else's opinion.
The thing that I found most interesting as we continued with this documentary, gathering footage and doing interviews, is the importance that everyone, native and non-native alike, educators and non-educators, put on the emphasis that they put on education. All of our interview subjects realized that the only way that language or culture or tradition is going to be passed on is through the younger generation, and instilling this sense of hope and pride into the youth so that they care enough to keep everything going and keep the native way of life alive.
I really wanted to create a context in which we were all active, curious learners, and it was that curiosity that I wanted to make the most of. Curiosity is one of the most important things we bring to learning. I wanted us all to be curious about American Indian lives and American Indian people in a way that was productive and in a way that created new meanings. What I really was keen to produce was a sense that we're all in this together, because frankly, we are all in this together. This being engaged in a process of understanding our shared world. We are all in that together, and it behooves all of us to think hard, to work hard, and to come to some new way of seeing Indian lives. I didn't know what the students were going to make, but I felt that the course would be a success if all of the students left the course with a more complicated understanding of the issues that inform American Indian lives. And I think that's happened. I don't think anyone of us can leave this course thinking in the same ways or seeing the same things as we did when we started. And on that score, I count the course an incredible success.
Where did the future go? I was feeling down, I was feeling so low. How to get out, how to get out. Parts unknown. Where did the feeling